Welcome. I'm Tom Jankowski, Garfield County Commissioner. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Grizzly Creek Fire Community Meeting, virtual community meeting. You know, the Grizzly Creek Fire started August 10th, and so we're almost a month into this. And this is the third time I've spoken at community meetings. I haven't had a chance to welcome the Alaska Incident Command Team. I know they've been here doing these meetings for a while, but wanted to welcome them from my perspective. Want to thank the Great Basin Community Team, or Incident Command Team. I think as residents of Glenwood Springs, you know, now that the canyon's open, now that we don't have smoke in our valley, we sometimes, and we don't see the firefighters here, unlike Storm King and unlike Coal Seam Fire, where we had a camp here. We don't see those firefighters here, but we have 600 firefighters still on this fire. And this is an active fire. It's still active. It's not 100% contained. So everybody needs to be aware of that and help out in every way we possibly can. And just finally, I'll just state that I did have a meeting today with Senator Bennett, along with about 24, 25 other people, and we had representatives from state, federal, fire people, highway people, FEMA, Homeland Security, and we're starting to talk about what we do as far as mitigation and once this fire is over. But that's for another time and another meeting. So with that, I'd like to just again thank the firefighters because we dodged a bullet, and turn it back over to Sam.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Jankowski. Appreciate it. We really appreciate being here in Garfield County again. It really helps that you're letting us use your facilities to do this. Thank you very much. I'm Sam Harold. I'm a Public Information Officer with the Alaska Incident Management Team. You guys know the routine out here following us along on Facebook. This is going to be much different than our previous meetings. Tonight, we're going to hear from our Incident Deputy Commander, Tom Kurth. We have our Fire Behavior Analyst back with us to give us a weather update and what's happening with the fire behavior. Chris Moore. John Glover, our Operations Chief, will give us an update on what's going on with the fire. We also have Chris Bornholt, the Garfield County Emergency Manager, going to talk to us about a few things that's going to affect Garfield County here. Dan Cacho from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife District Manager. Dan's going to answer those questions on hunting and wildlife and such. We've been getting a lot of those questions. Really glad that Dan was able to make it here. Monty Senior from BLM, Assistant Field Manager. Answer those questions about the BLM. Some of their lands are affected by this fire, so look forward to him. Also, CDOT, Glenwood Springs Area Manager Don Poole will be back with us, talk about the I-70 corridor and be able to answer any questions. And also tonight, Scott Fitzwilliams, the White River National Forest Supervisor, will be here. So these people will present. If you would post your questions in the comments section on Facebook, let's keep it focused to the fire and to our subject experts here, because now's the time to ask those questions. We've got the people here tonight to do it, so let's do that. Also helping out with these questions, I've got several information officers working with me. Cale Casey will capture these questions and present them to the subject matter experts. Sunshine Meitzner is working with us. Don Gelderlos is here with us. Mike DeFries is helping out, tracking along on Facebook and bringing this to us so we can get the questions. Also, this is not only live and will be recorded for later viewing on the Facebook page, it's also being simulcast and translated into Spanish on the Mi Salud, Mi Charco Facebook page. So tune in there for the Spanish translation. Let's get right to it. Tom Kurth, Deputy Incident Commander.
All right, thank you, Sam. Okay, if you could pardon me for a minute. New term for FaceTime nowadays. And thank you, Commissioner. We did have a really good meeting this afternoon with Senator Bennett and your Mayor, Jonathan Godis, is it? Those people are all over finding ways to rehabilitate and rebuild this watershed, and they have the soil conservation group in there, and they're doing a lot of pre-work. Ordinarily, we don't see a lot of that when we're involved with response, but this is a recovery group that is all over it, and certainly looking even into how jobs can be created as a result of this. So good meeting, and there's a couple of public servants who are certainly working in your favor there. Okay, again, Tom Kurth, Deputy Incident Commander with the Alaska Incident Management Team here. Last time we were here, we kind of talked about who we are and how we got here and that sort of thing. And so I think what we're dedicating this time to is, where we're going and how we get there. So we'll spend some time. We got a lot of experts out here that'll give you some of that direction and what this looks like long duration, not just for us, but as this incident lays out there through the fall and the winter time here and what to expect as this thing remains, it'll remain active for some time here. So we're still, I think we have 34,000 acres, 14 crews, 600 people. And as mentioned, this is a very active suppression group out there. And we'll still be in this vicinity. Our duration, we're trying to define this end state and what that looks like and what is leaving a good package for the forest back here. So we'll address that. We have our operations chief here who's going to talk about what exactly the fire and the perimeter and all those related issues look like. So that'll be Jonathan Glover here who will come in with that. And so I think we asked to have our objectives here. And this is what we use in our planning process each and every day. We have a plan that's developed with everybody's contributions. Our incident action plan is actually now 40 pages long, and within that is directions to each and every individual. So we have 100% accountability, and we want each and every person on our organization to know exactly what their instructions are and how to carry those out. That's how we run a safe organization here. And our first objective, which is up on the screen there, is firefighter and public safety. Those are always at the forefront of our mission, and it includes a risk management process. So that's a big process of how we get our operations started there, and always at the forefront here. Certainly, we're in South Canyon area here, and so that doesn't have to be reminded of the forest that is out here and the related tragedy that occurred here in 1994. Okay, the second objective here is what we are here to protect. That's the community of Glenwood Springs, infrastructure, power lines, transportation corridors, individual residents. All those things have to be identified, and then we build a plan in order to how to protect those, get these highway corridors open, how to get the utilities back here. And we're certainly working with a lot of cooperators, Excel, the utility companies, the local fire departments, the Department of Transportation, state troopers. Everybody is chipping in on an emergency like that. And certainly the adage that people come together in times like this holds true when we're looking at these particular incidents. That goes for our third objective, which is we're coming in here as a team from Alaska. This is your emergency. This is your crisis. And so working together to build these relationships as quickly as we can. You have the information, and then asking you how you get this done, how can we help you? And so that's an important part of building relationships and making sure those relationships are strengthened by the time we leave here with the Forest Service, with the fire departments, troopers, and so on and so forth here. All right, and then a big one that kind of gets overlooked is we are supplementing the initial TAC here. So we have crews that are dedicated to new starts out there. And that's probably one of the more probably problematic issues that we have out here. We're going to see how we're coming into critical fire weather conditions, and new starts are certainly an issue here. Prevention is a key word here, but we want to be able to supplement initial attacks should we get new starts here. And the potential out there certainly remains in the high and extreme areas there. A new one to us here is COVID and our mitigations there. And that is how we started early in the year here planning for how are we going to have a fire season and protect our firefighters and the public from COVID. And so we have mitigations in place. We're refreshing on those every day. You know, this is anything from masking up to social distancing to sanitizing and to a concept we have called module as one. And that means that crews that are working together, engine modules that are working together, those folks all know each other. They build trust between each other. And that along with that comes respect and integrity that is dedicated to you, to each of their fellow crew members, and so they can operate safely. And then we have a module as one, maybe an engine crew, we have another engine crew, and this module continues to build itself so that everybody has trust and respect that you're following procedures and that, you know, that we're not introducing any exposure needlessly here to each other or to the public here. And that takes a lot of time and focus. And we want to make sure, you know, we can continue our fire operations along with making sure that everybody is safe from this pandemic here. The next one here, suppression repair. That's well along here. So any lines that we construct, whether it be direct line along the edge of the fire or contingency line outside of the fire's edge, those will be repaired in some sort of fashion here so they don't promote erosion or they kind of close down access. And so that'll be taking place now. We're well into that and progressing along. That probably has suppression repair and related issues probably has about anywhere from 4 weeks to 6 weeks life out there. So that's going to be taking place for quite some time, even after we're not here. The local unit picks up that and we get that all started and organized and inventory, and then that can continue on even in our absence here. And, you know, dignity and respect. Our firefighters work long hours, close quarters, and so we do everything we can to, you know, promote a healthy work environment. And, you know, we're a salty bunch, so making sure that everybody is showing respect for each other is a big part of our, you know, our intent out there. And finally, cost containment. So each and every day, our finance section totaling up what our expenses are and where those expenses are going to. You know, some of the firefighting is a very expensive undertaking here. We have aircraft, we have crews, we have engines, we have support, and so we divide those up in each category and track that. Now, the other side of that is what we are protecting out there, and I think we mentioned in Glenwood Springs area, it's as much as $2.5 billion in values alone. And then on the other side, it's another $100 million. And then along with that, the costs when that I-70 corridor shut down are staggering, you know, the economic loss that occurs from there. So those are some of the things that we're looking closely at, and our objectives is to somewhat return life to normal here as quickly as we can. So we'll be doing that. Our duration looks like possibly 5 to 7 days here. And so with that, we'll work towards an end state, and our ops chief will talk about what that looks like. But then we want a smooth transition, and we'll see what an organization to replace us looks like. And so this whole process will continue on until we have most likely a season-ending event of some sort. And we'll let our weather discussion turn to that one, which is, it's got some interesting twists to it here. All right, Sam, so who we got next here?
Actually, we've had a last-minute change for our Spanish translation. It's not going to be on Mi Salud, Mi Charco. It's going to be on the Facebook Eagle County government page. And you won't have missed anything that Tom just said. It's going to be recorded, and you'll be able to catch that. But last minute change right here as we started to broadcast. I'll drag a little bit here so people can change the channel to get to the translation. And we'll have Chris Moore, the Alaska Incident Management Team's Fire Behavior Analyst.
Good evening. Like Sam said, I'm a fire behavior analyst, and my whole job on the fire is to work with our incident meteorologist and try to decipher how the weather, the fuels, and the topography will work together and result in fire behavior. So our incident meteorologist is briefing people who are going out on the night shift, so I'll cover the weather first, and then we'll talk a little bit about fire behavior on the fire. So as you can see from what we call the matrix here, today, Thursday, around a max temp 89, and as we move into Saturday and Sunday, the weather just keeps getting hotter and also as more significantly drier. Once the relative humidity, the relative amount of moisture in the air drops below 10%, that's kind of a critical threshold for how fuels burn in this area, so that's something we're going to pay attention to as we go on. But as you can see, going Monday into Tuesday, actually starting Sunday and then going Monday, Tuesday, we start getting increased winds. And then Tuesday, things get cold and possibly wet. So for meteorologists, they start feeling comfortable between 1 and 3 days with their forecast, and anything after that, the uncertainty goes up. And as of right now, the models for Monday into Tuesday and what that cold front looks like are a little bit uncertain. There's a good chance that we could get some moisture and maybe even some snow in the higher elevations. And there is an off chance of possible snow in the lower elevations, but this is still quite early to come up with a decisive answer on how that is going to play out. But there is a change in the weather coming Monday and Tuesday, and as we get closer to that event, the meteorologist will help us and guide us how the wind is going to come and in relation to when the moisture is going to come and how much and what form. Back to the map, please. So a way the fire behaves is under hot, dry, windy conditions. There needs to be dry fuels to burn, and there needs to be some kind of slope or topography or terrain for the fire to burn, and that will produce the greatest fire behavior, the most extreme example. And that's what it was when the fire started. It started in the bottom of the canyon. It had been a very dry spring and summer here in the area, so the fuels had plenty of time to dry out. And then there were red flag conditions, hot, dry, windy when the fire started. So that all combined to produce the fire behavior that you saw at the beginning of the fire. So what's changed now is that there's a lot of black line around the fire. We've removed the fire or removed the fuel, or the fire has burned the fuel around a good chunk of the fire, and so there's not a whole lot of area for the fire to spread. There's a few areas that are uncontained, and those are the areas we're focusing on. But with the weather becoming so hot and dry, areas on the interior of the fire, you can see all these spots, will start to become more active if there's any fuel left over or if it didn't burn fully before. Hot, dry weather will aid in the fuel consumption on the interior of the fire, which is actually a good thing because as that fuel burns out, it becomes less of a risk for spotting outside of the fire line. So up here in Grizzly Creek, the fire is kind of backing down the canyon rim towards the bottom. Fires burn much faster uphill, much slower going downhill. So this fire hasn't moved much in the last couple of days because it's burning downhill. There's not consistent fuels. It's very rocky. There's little out patches of mixed conifer. We got that shot of rain a few days ago. So as things heat up, we'll see if this area will do anything, how much fuel is left to burn, and what needs to happen because there are these big rocky outcroppings around where the fuel is burning. The fire needs to send a spot up, find some receptive fuel that's going to burn, and then start burning that. So as this continues, if we don't have a whole lot of wind, the opportunities for the spotting are decreased. And as you can see, we do have increased winds coming up later in the week. So we'll see how that all plays out here. The fire hasn't moved much, and it now has to work very hard to spread in that area. The other area of uncontrolled line we have is down here in Zulu and on the south side of the fire. And it's been like that, I think, since the Alaska team took over. And like I've said before, the fire raced up the canyon here It hit the canyon edge and plateaued out. The fuels changed from mixed conifer, Doug fir, spruce, things that are very flammable, to aspen and grazed grass up here. And so once it kind of topped out, lost that slope, changed fuel type, the fire eventually died out, but there's still a lot of heat scattered around out there that's going to require a lot of work to actually put out. One of the concerns down here is that when we start getting freezing temperatures, the grass and the aspen go from being a live fuel with a lot of moisture in it to being considered a dead fuel, and the fire can spread more rapidly in here. So this is a point of concern that it might not be burning now, but in a couple of weeks when things start freezing overnight quite readily or regularly, it could start to burn. So we're focusing on that, and as of right now, it is not spreading. And once again, we'll see what happens as the weather keeps warming and drying, and then we have the wind on there. But all those concerns for down here and down here have been communicated to the operations group, and they know the possibilities and the challenges that are there. So I'll be happy to answer more questions at the end if anyone has any. Thank you.
All right. Alaska Team Operations Chief, John Glover.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And again, we appreciate the warm reception that we've had in the community of Eagle and also Glenwood Springs. It's been a pleasure to be here, and everybody's just poured their hearts out to us. So thank you again for all of that. I'm going to go ahead and go around the horn here and give you an operational overview and basically where we're at currently with the Grizzly Creek fire. As Tom was alluding to, we're at 32,464 acres. Currently at 82% containment. We got 12 crews, 4 helicopters, 3 now, 31 engines, 8 tenders, 7 dozers, and about 600, a little over 600 personnel on the incident. Okay, so we'll talk about the whole fire, but we'll focus on a couple of areas, kind of where we left off the last 2 community meetings, and we'll anchor in here at I-70 on the west side of the incident. So in Division November, are we on the map? Cool. So in Division November, we talked last time, we were developing the plan to go in here and go direct on this piece of ground right up against the fire's edge. We instituted that plan, put a hotshot crew down here on the bottom end, a few smoke jumpers and ex-smoke jumpers, and then 2 hotshot crews up on top with some miscellaneous overhead. They've had really, really good progress and success over the last 3 to 5 days in there. They have containment all the way up, extending off of what was pre-existing here from the Great Basin team, up around our heli spot in here, and all the way up to a rocky bluff where the fire kind of checked up in. And then on top of that area, we inserted the 2 crews, and they worked rim to rim from the No Name bluff over to the Grizzly Creek bluff. There is one small piece in there that is not closed together yet, but we anticipate that closing in the next couple of days. It's just we want to make 100% certain that we've gotten everything in there. It's real spotty and mosaic-y, so not a straight line fire edge, but a real inconsistent one with basically like 150 little campfire rings that range in 5x5 to like 20x20, and we have to go 100% on all of those and make for sure the entire area is cold. So it's pretty time-consuming work in there. Anyway, they're having good success though. Right before I came into the meeting, got an update from our air attack platform, basically a fixed-wing aircraft that just does circles all day and coordinates the rotor wing water support and logistical support operation. And their report to me was we did have one of the heavy helicopters working in here. We had some isolated torching and some group torching, but it was interior of the edge. And we're working that piece on the outside of it and letting the fuel consume while we have people in there. The more we burn out, the less we have to deal with later on. So it's a good operation, and we're just keeping that edge nice and cool. But there are plenty of personnel in there that's working that right now, and like I said, strong success there. Grizzly Creek, like Moore said, things are holding pretty well in here on the east side of the drainage. Where it's had fuel to burn down into it, it has in most areas. Again, we have that aerial platform flying around. We have personnel that look out from this area down drainage. We have folks up on top looking up drainage. So we have good eyes on that area in case anything does try and move to that west side. But the fuels transition, like Chris said, and we feel very confident that even if we do have a weather anomaly come over and push that to the other side, that we'll have good success picking it up on the top side. So far, it hasn't really moved at all in the last 5 days in that area. We know that we're going into a hot and dry trend with some wind, so we'll remain diligent and focused up in here, keeping eyes on it and employing any resources that are needed to keep that in check. Working over here into branch 3 on the far north end, they've had real good success in mop up and patrol on there. Basically, the only areas of heat are well interior, half a mile interior, stuff that even if it burns and even if it catches a little more fuel on fire, we just don't have the potential for it to come out and across our control lines. So the folks, once they got the edge all nice and cooled down and secured, they've gone into suppression repair. And like Tom mentioned earlier, they're bringing in the dozer lines, rehabbing those, water barring so we don't have drainage issues, dragging brush back over, and trying to put the landscape back to normal. So you guys don't feel the impact on that long term. And they're having really good success in that area. We expect a couple more shifts, two to four more shifts, and this whole area will be pretty well repaired. We will keep a presence in there. We will monitor it. We will stay focused. We will be patrolling it on the ground and in the air. South of I-70 in Division X-ray, you may have seen a little bit of smoke in here. We did have some reports from the public today. They were concerned. We have personnel all in that area. They're working the heat that are well interior. We do have some values at risk in there in the bare drainage on that chunk of ground. And they're working some of those areas that have heat close to a value at risk. But nothing's of any grave concern to us right now. We have a very low probability of any adverse impacts in there. On the outside edge, good success in patrol and mop up. Everything's holding real well. They're gaining depth on that. And as you can see, as we come around, we've increased containment since we've been here along this area right down in Zulu. I know some people didn't hear much spoken about on Division Zulu today in the morning update, so I'll speak to it now. It's actually been pretty busy in there the last couple of days, not because of an increase of fire activity, but we've had the ability to shift some resources and focus them in on there since that's our uncontained line. We've put half a hand crew in here and also a shot crew and some additional resources that have been coming available over the last couple of days. So we're having the ability to bolster our efforts in here and anchor off of this containment and work our way across. As I told you guys a week ago, this area, there's a likelihood of even when we transition out that you're still going to see some red uncontained line on there. But that's really because even though it doesn't look very far on a map, that's about 8 miles on the ground, which is a whole lot of ground to cover when you're literally putting your hands in the dirt to feel and check to see if there's any hot embers that the wind could pick up and carry over. What we do on the ground is not pretty, and it's people think that it's pretty amazing stuff that we get to do, but a lot of it is just hard work where we just drag our hands through everything and make for sure that it's cold, and if we find any heat, we just dig it up and put it out. So if you can imagine going across eight miles with your hands in the dirt, it's going to take you a while. So that's where we're putting our efforts in. As it bails off of the ridge here and drops down, this finger is that green area. That's what we call a finger. It's a lot of aspen components, a big giant aspen stem that bails off the hill there. It didn't move fast through there. What it did is it burned up all this conifer in here and showered a ton of like bonfire sparks that you guys would be used to and throws it right into all of that area. Well, those all started a bunch of little itty bitty fires, and it created a giant mess in here for us to try and cold trail and contain, because each one of those spots has to be contained before we can put black on the map. So that's what they're focused on, is working their way around and As they get into this is just going to be time consuming as they have availability to go direct on that. But in case the weather were to try and throw some more adverse conditions on us, or we get that freeze that Chris was talking about, and these fuels dry out, we've still maintained all of our secondary lines up on top. And there's a big fuel transition up top there, and we have a high level of confidence with the resources that we have and the fuel loading that's on top in that grazed grass that we can pick it up fairly easily if it tries real hard to come out of there. Again, we've really narrowed it down to 2 areas of focus that we have to deal with on the incident, and we have enough manpower to be able to have a high probability of success in dealing with anything that comes out. Working our way into Alpha here. Last time we talked, this whole piece was still uncontained. We've had good success working in here, gaining depth, and then carrying that containment all the way down to I-70 corridor. This piece is pretty arduous. We've had a whole lot of opportunity to work with cooperators here that have lent hands to us and been super helpful. And the XL folks and the power line infrastructure folks, they allowed us some use of some of their tools as well. And between the combination of efforts, we were able to really get a good look at this piece in here and ID that it's cold and does not have a high probability of coming out. So we went ahead and added containment here. Like Tom said, one of our objectives is maintaining initial attack capabilities to support the local forests and communities and counties here. And with that, we have an IA and structure group that's positioned on the west and east side of the canyon here to be able to support the local area with any new initial attack, as well as the helicopters that we have staged down here and working the fire. They're also available for us to use, and the folks that are engaged on the pieces of line, they're postured to be able to peel off and help as needed if we have an initial attack. So in reality, you guys are sitting better than a lot of other areas because you have, even after we leave, you're going to have a few hundred people here. And right now we have, close to 600 folks in and around here that can peel off and help support any new initial attack. So I know this has been an adverse event for you guys to deal with, but the consequence for that as we extend into this hot, dry summer that you all are having is you have an increased amount of resources to help prevent anything else from growing large. Additionally, the last thing here, we've had a lot of structure protection that was deployed out around the communities. And as we've gained containment around different lines and areas of concern, we've gone in and started pulling some of that stuff. The majority of it's pulled off of our secondary lines and around the structures where it was deployed earlier. So we're trying to clean up our mess as we gain containment around the fire. That's all I have. I'll take questions at the end, but I would just like to say thank you again for the support with the community. It's been a pleasure to be here. I don't think I've been to a town where I've had such a warm welcome. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, John. All right, next up is Chris Bornholt, Garfield County Emergency Manager. Here you go, Chris.
Good evening, Chris Bornholt, Garfield County Emergency Manager. Sorry. We have a website set up. We're kind of thinking, we've been working hard with the incident management teams as they've been here, kind of working through all this process. Now we're trying to plan for the next part of this with the possibility of flooding. So I wanted to give you some information tonight to go to garfield-county.com, go to the emergency management page. Under the departments, hit emergency management, scroll down that page. On the left side, there's a flash floods section. If you click on that, there's a video that we put together for you to give you a bunch of information. And there's also a lot of links in there that are going to help you get through that next part of the flooding and kind of what's going on with that. And we kind of talk about the areas that are going to be affected by that. We talk about all that in that video. So if you go on there and look at that video, hopefully that'll answer a lot of your questions. And again, I would like to thank the incident management teams, all of them, for everything that they've done. And thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next up, we've got Dan Cacho, Colorado Parks and Wildlife District Manager. Here comes Dan.
Thanks, Sam. My name's Dan Cacho.
Let's tilt that up a little bit there, Dan. A little taller than the rest of us.
Thank you, Sam. My name's Dan Cacho. I'm the local district wildlife manager for Colorado Parks and Wildlife here in Glenwood, AKA I'm just the boots on the ground game warden. I'm pretty intimately familiar with the area that's burning right now. And we've been getting a lot of questions in our office regarding how this fire is going to affect hunters and what their hunting season is going to look like up in the Glenwood Canyon area, as well as how is the fire affecting wildlife itself. We can look at the picture on the screen. I took this picture myself. I think it was August 22nd. I'm on the westbound lanes of I-70, just east of the no-name tunnels. And you can see there some bighorn sheep just grazing in the median. Can you go to the next picture? You can see there the bighorn sheep are just basically hanging out in the middle of the interstate. So I can just let everybody know that I would imagine for the most part, wildlife in the canyon and around the canyon is faring pretty well. As an agency, we have not been able to do any sort of aerial surveys to this point. Fire operations are taking the precedence over anything that we're doing. But from everything that we can see from these pictures that I've taken and that others have taken, we have pretty good evidence to believe that the wildlife is faring pretty good on the landscape. Getting back to hunting seasons, archery season actually started yesterday, so we're already into the middle of hunting seasons. Archery season will go through the rest of September. Rifle seasons will start up in October and extend into November. Any hunters that have purchased hunting tags that specifically are in Unit 34, which includes the Glenwood Canyon, or at least the north part of Glenwood Canyon, we've set up some different things so that those hunters can be reimbursed for the licenses that they purchased and also get some preference points back. There are some hunting licenses out there that include Unit 34 that those stipulations will not apply to. If you have any questions, just give us a call at our office and I'll give you our contact info when I'm done talking at the end. Just to kind of reiterate, both the White River National Forest and the BLM currently have closures in different areas surrounding the Glenwood Canyon and into basically Unit 34, Game Management Unit 34. For the most up-to-date maps, I would refer you to go to those agencies' websites. We get a lot of questions, is CPW thinking about canceling hunting seasons in these areas? And no, we are not. We still have hunting seasons going. We still have tons of people showing up to our office buying licenses. So hunting seasons are still in effect. Going back to wildlife impacts, there really aren't very many, if any, wildlife populations in this area that are going to be, in our assessment, lost due to the fire. We may have some incidents where maybe individual animals that occurs, but in general, for the most part, most of our wildlife populations on the ground are going to be okay. They're pretty capable of avoiding any impacts from the fire. A lot of people have been impacted by the fire and evacuated. I think a lot of these wildlife populations, they see that smoke, and that's kind of their evacuation notice. They know to get out of the area. And physically, they're very capable of getting out. Many folks remember the Lake Christine fire in 2018, just outside of Basalt. We did some aerial surveys as well as ground surveys after that fire. And besides some small mammals and reptiles, we really didn't find any evidence of large mammals being consumed or taken by the fire. So we would anticipate that the same is probably going to be true for the Grizzly Creek fire. A lot of people talk about the burn scar that we see, with I-70 open. A lot of people are driving through and seeing a lot of burned ground. We as wildlife managers, at least on the wildlife side, we look at it in terms of what's to come from the fire. I don't know if you guys can pull it up, but I think yesterday I saw on the Grizzly Creek Facebook page some pictures, maybe from a firefighter, of some new sprouting green in the black. So, I mean, this is within days of the fire and stuff is already starting to sprout back. So that kind of forage and foliage that's already popping back, that is probably of the highest benefit to our wildlife populations out there. Our deer, elk, bighorn sheep, they're going to seek that out. And I think people will be pretty surprised at the draw that those burned areas have, even just within days of the fire. Are animals stressed? We get that question a lot, and is there anything that people can do? People are offering to put buckets of water out for the animals. And generally speaking, CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, wouldn't advocate for that. Within the burn area, there's tons of creeks and rivers and available water for wildlife species. And just placing water outside of your homes may introduce animals into areas where they typically wouldn't go. And then we start getting the calls for nuisance animals. So we think, at least resource-wise, they should be able to get just about everything that they need. Are the animals stressed? I would say that, yes, initially from the fire, I think it would be a stressful event for these animals, but once they're able to move out of the way, I think that stress would subside. And just going back to that new forage that's coming back, I mean, in the Glenwood Canyon, we saw a lot of places that burned, held a lot of that decadent, older age class forage base for our herds. And with this new forage that's coming in, I think it's going to be of high value. Also, another kind of artifact of the fire is, a lot of these places have been closed. And so with that closure and keeping people out of these areas, places like Hanging Lake that have just been, even with the new permit system, they've been busy with people. I think that absence of people on the ground recreating, has probably been of benefit to the wildlife resource out there. I don't think folks, by recreating out on the wildlands, are intentionally trying to impact wildlife populations, but I think it's just a fact that just by people's presence and increased presence and the numbers that we see out on the landscape, that does have an impact. We've been getting a lot of questions at our office, more specifically about general locations up into Unit 34, people accessing into Unit 34. I know that Incident Command has probably been fielding a lot of those questions as well. For all of those types of questions, I would say call into our I would say first try the Colorado Parks and Wildlife office out of Glenwood Springs, and that phone number is 970-947-2920. And also, I would urge people to reference the closures that the Forest Service and the BLM has put out there, and to regularly check those maps, because if there are any changes, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott or Monty, I think those maps will be put out on websites pretty quickly, and any updates will be put out pretty quickly. So check those maps, check them frequently, because things could change. In terms of closures and people using using the area, even with the closures in place. You know, there's only so much that Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the BLM, Forest Service, even the Sheriff's Office can do to keep people off of these public lands, even though they are closed. I would say, you know, as a community, it's going to take a little bit of personal responsibility, you know, by everybody to remember that, you know, this thing isn't over yet, and we need to respect those closures and know that they're there for a reason, and take it upon ourselves to manage ourselves. I'll hang around here for the duration. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
That was good stuff, Dan. Thank you. Thank you very much. And you're right, we have been getting an awful lot of those questions. I'm kind of drawing this out a little bit here, Monty. Our translators in the back are switching seats, giving one person a break. It's a little exhausting to try and think and go through this fire terminology that we've been using. Some of us talk real fast.
Hey, Sam, while you do that, could you just let the public know the answer to this question? Is the Grizzly Creek Fire area open to hunting?
No, it is not open
Okay.
to hunting.
So the person who asked online, is Grizzly Creek area open to hunting in the closed fire area? The answer is no.
Where the forest and where the BLM have closed portions of the land that they manage due to the impact of the fire, that means that you can't go in there to hunt. You can't go in there to recreate. This is all good stuff. I hope our translators are back. But I do want to shout out to the people on Facebook that have really helped us carry this message forward. I'm kind of taking off my facilitator hat here and putting back on my PIO bandana, but it was really a help from the outpouring of people on Facebook to help us carry the message to the recreationists that were intruding in where firefighters were working. The hunters were scouting the areas. They really need to understand that it's not just for the safety of themselves, but for the safety of our firefighters and all. So we really appreciate the help that the Facebook community have given us. And let's get Monty Senior here, BLM, and he's gonna answer some questions for us.
Hey, so good evening, Monty Senior here from the BLM. It was good lead in here by Dan and the question there of kind of where we're at. So the forest and BLM, you know, we've been hearing all the interest of the public wanting to know about accessing their public lands. And so this week, the BLM and members of Scott's team on the forest and the counties and the Alaska team, we sat down and we kind of took a real hard look at what the appropriateness of the closures were that we had in place. And so, you know, after looking at that, you know, we have been able to reduce the closures areas where it's safe to do so for the public and for the firefighters. So with that, I'll talk a little bit here about this is the BLM boat landings here. We had all of these closed originally in the fire. We have been able to open Cottonwood Landing. This is available both for launching and takeout. Lions Gulch is only available for takeout. And so this stretch here is really not open because the .0 landing boat ramp is closed. And, you know, that's closed for a variety of reasons, but there's a lot of fire activity still going on in that boat ramp. And so this is the new closure here that we've worked on this week that we've come up with. And the difference you'll see here is we now have this section of BLM out of the closure. So now Kaiser Creek Trailhead is open. You can get up Kaiser Creek. You can use the trail. You know, the forest is closed on the south side of the trail there. Also has taken out all this country over here that you're not seeing on the map that kind of is in Storm King, in the saddle of Storm King. Remains in closure is this kind of straight up Mitchell Creek to the forest boundary. This transfer trail area, this all remains closed to public entry, including hunting. The Lookout Mountain, all this country here to the south is all kind of maintained the closure because we have an active fire line and we have a lot of fire suppression type work going on there. We were able to cut out this country over in here. We now, the closure comes down Bob Creek to Cottonwood Creek to the Colorado River, so it's just this section is closed. So there's a fair amount of country that's open there. We have, this is the Coffee Pot Road as it goes up. So the closure is now south of the Coffee Pot Road, west of the Colorado River Road. And so all this Onion Ridge country is now open in there. So that's kind of all I have on the closures. You know, we will continue to assess the appropriateness of the closures on a regular basis. So, and we can take questions later. Thank you.
All right, Monty, thank you very much. Next, we'll have up here Colorado Department of Transportation, Don Poole.
And Don, you already have a question about whether the bike lane is open through the highway corridor.
The bike path in Glenwood Canyon is closed. It will remain closed, along with the rest areas. We did send a crew down the bike path today to take a look at it, just to make sure that we didn't have any damage in there. We did find that our cantilever section bridge just above Shoshone Power Plant in between, just below Shoshone Power Plant, between it and Grizzly Creek, had a rather large boulder that rolled off the hill during the fire, went underneath I-70, hit that bridge, knocked one segment of that bridge 6 inches out of alignment, and it will remain closed. A staff bridge is coming over tomorrow to look at that. We're going to have to get a contract out to get that section of the bike path repaired. But the entire bike path and the rest areas will remain closed until further notice. We're not going to open them up until we feel that we are out of the danger of a mudslide, a rock slide, a debris flow, or anything else that could impact anybody that's away from their vehicles and stranded out where they can't get out of the canyon when we get a notification from the National Weather Service that possibly could cause one of those incidents that would cause CDOT to close I-70. We're working in conjunction with Garfield County Emergency Management on that part of it. That way they don't turn this into a search and rescue. Also with Eagle County also. I do have a couple other updates. As far as we had a question the other night about avalanche areas in Glenwood Canyon. I contacted one of my partners with Colorado Avalanche Information Center that does the forecasting for my area in the wintertime for McClure Pass, Glenwood Canyon, and Independence Pass, Brandon Levy. They have been out, they've done an informal assessment. The slide area known as the Powerhouse Slide Area, there's been no change as far as that slide area. It's still there, it's still a slide area. They will be out on September 9th to do a formal assessment of all the burn area in Glenwood Canyon to make sure that we haven't had anything that would make a new slide area. He does say, though, that if we do have a rock slide or a mudslide or a flow of some kind that comes off one of the slopes and changes something, that we could possibly have more areas that could possibly be avalanche areas. So more to come with that. Like I said, they're going to do that on September 9th. They will get back with me after that and let me know what they find. So that's pretty much it. We did meet with Pitkin County yesterday, and they were concerned about our plans when we close I-70 due to a watch of a weather warning for I-70 in Glenwood Canyon. So we put back in place our response to Independence Pass to man that during the closure time of I-70 to ensure that we didn't get any commercial vehicles that took Highway 82 over Independence Pass while we had I-70 closed. And that would cause a plug up or a complete closure of Highway 82. So I'll take any more questions at the end. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Don. Next up here, we have Scott Fitzwilliams, White River National Forest Supervisor.
Thanks,
Take it
Tim.
away, Scott.
Good evening. It's good to be back. I was thinking today, and I was thinking, Tom, it's been almost a month since that first phone call I made to you and our first Facebook Live event. And I remember saying then it's going to be a long duration event. And here we are almost a month later, and we're still dealing with it. The good news is we're in better shape than we were, certainly on the 10th or 11th of August for sure. So great appreciation to everyone. I want to address a little bit more about the closure. Good news on the closure is we shrunk it. So there's less of the White River National Forest that's closed off. But I do want to emphasize that Coffee Pot Road and Transfer Trail are still closed, and they're going to be for at least a couple more weeks until we can get the fire in a situation where it's not dangerous, and where equipment and fire, the heavy equipment that's up there, until it's safe. That road, as people who know both Transfer Trail and the Coffee Pot Road, they're dicey roads without a fire going on. So we recognize it's hunting season and people want to get in there. Like I said, check our website, check the BLM website. We've shrunk the closure order. You can get into that east side of the flat tops from the, I'll grab my pointer here from grabbing it and knowing how to use it. The Heart Lake area is now open, but you got to come in from the west. And then people who know the area, the Sweetwater area to the north is open. So there are ways to get in there. It's not the normal drive, but the Coffee Pot Road, the Transfer Trail, and then the Dotsero boat launch will probably be closed for a little while yet. And we're working really hard to get this open as fast as we can. So we'll continue to work on that. I don't have much else as far as report. I thought people did a great job, and a couple things that I've noticed, and as Commissioner Jankowski mentioned, we had a meeting with Senator Bennett today, and I have never seen in my career of being at fires the response to the restoration, to the rehab, to the long-term efforts so fast. This community is working together great. All the federal agencies were there, the local agencies, and you have the delegation, both Senator Bennett, Senator Gardner, on our behalf, working towards the long-term impacts, and people are really recognizing it. So I think as a community, we have a real opportunity, and we're really lucky that people are working together. The other thing I wanted to share tonight, every day or when I'm in my office and checking mail, I've been getting cards and letters from just grateful people who are dropping great cards and letters to the firefighters primarily and thanking them. And I know that makes a lot of difference when we get to post these around the fire camps or let them know that, there's you know, a guy from Wisconsin's grateful for what you guys are doing. And yesterday I opened a card and I thought it was another thank you card. And inside it was a $5,000 check for the restoration fund. And people are continuing to ask us how they can help us, on how they can help us. And I don't know who this person was, but it sure was an amazingly generous offer or gift. And just to remind people, the National Forest Foundation has set up the Grizzly Creek Fire Restoration Fund. Go to nationalforest.org and /Grizzly Creek, and you can find that. We really appreciate that. I've heard from both the incident management teams that they've never seen communities so grateful for what they've done, and because we all live here, and for all the work you guys have done, it's been real, and it's been you know, just really something to see from the community reaching out like that. So we appreciate it. I know the firefighters appreciate it. So we're going to take questions now, right, Sam?
Great,
I
Scott.
believe so. Let's see, Kale, you want to start right here with
Yeah,
Scott?
you bet, Scott.
Yeah,
Let's stick
stay
with
right
you.
there, Scott.
And great question from the audience. What happens when the fire is 100% contained? What's next for the firefighters at that point?
We all go home and put up our feet. No, I wish it was that simple. So, you know, we're going to begin shrinking things down as more and more containment. We can you know, keep this fire under control, and eventually that's what we're shooting for, is control, where we're confident that this fire is not going anywhere. So we'll send people at home as we don't need the resources. And really, at this time in the year, it's going to take a season ending event for us to call it out. And my guess is that won't be till November or later that we'll actually declare this fire out. We're going to have people monitoring that up there. We're going to have, you know, next week, the burnt area emergency response team comes back, and they're going to start to do a lot of work on the ground to see where the worst parts of the fire, where the effects are. And like I said, both the BLM and the Forest Service will continue to evaluate that closure order. And as things get better, we hope we can shrink that. And, you know, I wish I could give people a date on the Coffee Pot Road and the transfer trail, because I know a lot of hunters want to get up there. But I can't give the date now. But we're moving in the right direction, and that's great. We're not having setbacks, so.
Great, thanks. And Scott, one more for you before we move on to Operations Chief John Glover. And it's a common question about, you know, this is a big investigation, and there's the curiosity of, is there a timeline for when that would be concluded, and would appropriate action be taken if there was a known,
Sure.
You know, individual or company cause?
Yeah. Here's what I talked to the lead investigator, because we've got so many of the questions, and he's not hiding anything. I mean, he is still looking into it. He doesn't have a suspect. He doesn't have, you know, a smoking gun. He's got, you know, he's putting the evidence trail back together. And so we may never know who did it. You know, we know it was human cause. We know it started on the highway, but it's not like we're, you know, waiting to serve a warrant or anything like that. It's truly under investigation. There's a lot of video taken, and they're, you know, gathering all that. And so it's not like we have someone. It's truly still putting the puzzle together. And if we get to the point where we have a definitive cause and someone that, you know, was responsible, we'll let people know. But you know, just to meet everyone, to set the expectations right, that may not come. I mean, that there may not be a day that we know that.
Thanks, Scott. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
And for John Glover, we had a follow-up there. I think folks are just curious, John. They've seen our PSAs on the Facebook page. They've heard us talking about mountain bikers involving, you know, kind of getting in the way of fire traffic. Can you give folks just a little bit more idea of some of those issues that you come across and the challenges? Like when people violate a closure and mountain bike up Coffee Pot Road, 3 abreast, and you have big heavy equipment coming down, what is that like for a firefighter? How does that affect your operations?
Well, it's a good question. I guess, first of all, we recognize that just being here is an impact on the community, and we're really trying to condense that to the smallest timeline possible. When we have an interaction with the public in a closure, you know, first of all, if we have one interaction, it makes us really wonder how many more are out there. Where there's one, there's many usually. And so then we have to really kind of slow things down, check, maybe do a sweep of the area, depending on the type of operations that we have going on. So it really just impedes our progress. You know, some of the big concerns, mountain bikers in particular, I had an encounter with one as well. And, you know, they were coming up the wrong side of the road on a cliff wall. And, you know, I just thought if I was in an SUV, I had the ability to brake. I was going slow, but I wasn't fully loaded or anything like that. And my thought was, what if that was a water tender? Or what if that was a Type 3 engine full of people? You know, what if they were responding to an incident and had a radio transmission going at the same time? You know, how are they going to be able to react and then judge how to react when somebody's in their lane and they know the consequence of their action will affect the other person's as well? So the best thing you can do is just yield the tonnage, stay out of the corridor that we have to access in, and then just recognize that our goal is to be out of here as quickly as we can and try and get your reality back to normal.
Great, thanks. And we'll swap out with Chris Moore because it is hot and dry. It's getting hotter and drier, and that weather matrix really showed folks single-digit RH relative humidities. So if there is a new start, human cause, campfire that's illegal, lightning bolt, drag chain, something like that, Chris, what is the potential out there?
The potential is pretty much what the potential was when Grizzly Creek started with the weather conditions that we have. So just be aware that, like I said before, and I keep saying, it's fuels, weather, and topography. If there is a start somewhere where there is very dry fuel, slope is in alignment, and we have that hot, dry weather and wind, then there is potential for exponential, very large fire growth and extreme fire behavior that people can't get in right away and put the fire out. So just be aware that even though it seems that we're making very good progress here on Grizzly Creek, there is still potential for any new start out there, especially going into the holiday weekend. Great,
Thanks, Chris. And one more for Don. We always get good questions for Don. You said Storm King is open. Is Dolan's Gulch Road open?
What was the question, Cal?
You said Storm King is open. Is Dolan's Gulch Road open?
Storm King.
Is that a
Would've
BLM
been
question for Monty?
His question.
Great,
not
let's
mine.
get Monty in there, and then we have a follow-up for Monty on, sorry, Don. Well, you know, you are the god of knowing all things roads. Cottonwood Pass.
Stand by
all
here.
sorts
Here
of-
comes Monty.
Slide Pass, Impact. Monty, how about Dolan's Gulch Road?
So, so Dolan's Gulch would only be open to the forest boundary, and then it closes. So there's a little bit there.
Can you describe that a little bit for folks, what that would look like?
So there is a boundary, marker there. So it's trying to see. Use your pointer. It's kind of off the map here. So it's coming right up here. And so you'd come up here and then it would close right at the forest.
Would the public see something? Would they have to know would they see a BLM sign or a change in demarcation?
So the forest, we spent time with the forest and we identified where we would put barricades, and so we know there's a road that comes up out of here, there at Haypress Lake, that they're gonna put a road closed barricade, and so we didn't specifically talk to Dolan's Gulch, but I could definitely talk to forest of getting one in there.
Okay, great. And then we'll close out with you. We got one more. This is the classic boater question, because you drive down the I-70, you see Dot Zero, you don't see a whole bunch of fire apparatus there. And I'm sure it's running through more people's mind than just this person. Why can't we use Dot Zero landing as river access and pull out at the mouth at the canyon?
Well, so a couple of reasons there. So we have a lot of fire suppression type activities going on. They're pulling water out of the ramp. You know, we're using that as a staging area on the Dot Zero landing site itself. But we also have that potential that we have active fire. We also have potential for initial attack that we need. And so, you know, when we have people in the river, you can't put the helicopters in the river and pull water out of the river.
Okay, great. So it's also proactive. So folks who might just be seeing equipment and saying, why can't I just sneak in there and pull out? If we have an operation, the helicopters are dropping buckets in the river, we need to get engines and such in there. We just can't have any civilians near that area.
Yeah.
Copy. Thank you. And Sam, back to you.
That's it for all the questions?
We're good?
Wow, that's good. That means my information shop is answering all your questions with getting that out there. Once again, want to thank Garfield County for providing the facilities, helping us to get the message out to all the folks out there watching. If we were keeping with our cycle of community meetings, Monday night would be it. Monday's Labor Day. Can't expect people to come in and help us with the production and everything. It'll be back in Eagle County, but we'll do it on Tuesday night. So it'll be at 6 p.m. Tuesday night. It'll be live on Facebook like these have been, and Tuesday, so not Monday. As far as I know, I think that's it.
Yep, and
Cale,
we'll
one
keep
more?
answering questions throughout the evening and tomorrow. We always look for your responses on Facebook, whether it's on a break it down, a public meeting, or just a regular post. We have a bunch of information officers here and in Alaska that are looking to help you get through this with every question answered.
Thank you, Cale. And that's true. The Alaska team will be here into next week. We'll continue with our work on the Facebook page and our daily updates and any questions. You can call the fire information line. It's in our updates. And just ask us a question on the Facebook page. Thank you. Thank you all very much.